Hello, everybody, and welcome to the front row. I am so excited for today's conversation. Thank you all for joining, whether you are watching it live or later will watch it with the replay. We are so excited for today's guest, which is Miss Jamia Wilson. We are going to have a wonderful conversation just talking about her, what inspired her writings, talk about her latest book. And for those who are watching, you also have an opportunity. If you have questions or comments you would love for me to share with her, I will do it at that time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As you always know, the front row is a very much so interactive platform. So if you have a question, pose it. I'll make sure I show it. And then again, if you have any questions, we will do an end of the interview, a Q&A. So I always love to start, Junior, with the beginning. And I love to hear authors' beginning because you can traditionally think like, oh, I know how they started writing, but I would love to hear for you, what got you to the place where you are now, making just amazing work for us. Like, what's your story?
Thank you so much for having me. I have always loved reading. I came from a family of readers who very much valued education. Often my gifts on holidays and my birthday would be books. I was sent to writing camp as a child to learn to write and to practice my craft. You know, I was always excited about any kind of content creation. Now I have the words for it.
Right.
Content creation. I was going to camp and working on the camp newspaper, doing writing camp. I created a book when I was about 5 that I stapled together and tied together with ribbons. And when my first children's book, Young, Gifted, and Black, came out, my mother brought me that book to remind me that they'd always believed that I could be a writer. So for me, I have always loved books. I've always been surrounded by them. My parents had walls lined with books and mini bookshelves, which you can't see it from this picture, but I do also have that in my house now, in my apartment. And when I was in school, I always loved to read. And when I found myself being a new student in new places, because I moved to several places out of the country and in the country, one of the first people I would always want to befriend would be the librarian, because when you don't have friends yet, you can always find your friends in books. You can always travel to other places when you feel homesick and to experience that. So that really was an anchor for me in the different places I'd been moving and living. And then I had first thought that journalism was going to be what I was going to do. I studied that and really was involved in activism in high school and college and the earlier part of my career. But then I found in that work that I loved the culture changing part of it, being able to talk about the issues I cared about and write about them and to move hearts and minds. And I have experienced a spiritual teacher who I met through one of those activist engagements, who was really good at seeing people's core gifts. And she wouldn't tell you what they were. You'd have to kind of figure it out for yourself over the years. And then Norma, her name is Norma Wong, would then kind of confirm for you whether or not that was it. And so I think about her a lot now, because she was very much someone who saw in me, although I was doing organizing and activism work when we met at the intersection of media, that I was really, had a heart for content and books, and was always finding time, even outside of my day job, to be creating books, working on it on the weekends, working on it early in the morning, burning the midnight oil. And so I, have just kept at it. I've done a lot of online and offline content work in my career, but also in my pleasure, and contributed to a lot of other people's books before that. And so after contributing to a lot of anthologies and books and compilations, I realized, I can do this too. And that's how it really came to be. And then Young, Gifted, and Black was commissioned by my amazing editor, Katie Flint. And she paired me up with this illustrator I love, Andrea Pippins, who I've now worked on many books with. And I'd known Andrea online because we'd both interacted in the blogosphere as Black women bloggers. And so I knew that it was meant to be, because she was someone I admired and had engaged with before. And the fact that our publisher at that time had brought us together and we had already met, not in person, but, in the world, was a sign to me that, okay, this is going to need to happen. And we didn't know then that it was going to take off to become mini books together, but we started with that one.
I love it. And I love hearing your background because it just all makes sense to me.
I love it.
I was like reading about you, I'm like, wow, she's done so much. Like, I feel like, but it's all intertwined in just a very beautiful way of just like telling people stories and also calling people to actions. And so that is what led me to this question. So your books, what are the inspirations behind the stories? I definitely see a theme. I definitely see very specific about who you're speaking to or wanting to speak to. What would you say are like the inspirations behind the books that you put out?
You know, I think the through line is I want books that show people who don't often see themselves reflected positively or in multidimensional ways in books to see themselves in books. But I also want to do the books that I wanted to read that didn't exist for me as a young person. Yeah. That's a big part of what motivates me and inspires me to write. Where is the mystery for me of why doesn't this exist? It needs to exist. These are the questions I was asking or I'm still asking. And I want to provide this for the next generation because I needed it. And I also think I'm inspired just by the experiences of everyday life. I see myself as being really tuned in, you know, in general, in a metaphysical sense, even. I'm a deep empath kind of person. And lots of things will happen. I'll overhear a conversation on the subway. I will have an experience with someone. They'll ask me a question. I'll be deeply moved by something, and it'll often come to me as an idea. And I have a notebook, you know, and a Evernote where I'm always kind of putting these ideas down. And then sometimes those ideas, when I pitch them to my editor, turn into book projects. But a lot of these things come from, you know, having some sort of deep emotional connection to something or a values-based reason of being. And, you know, the adult book that I worked on with my co-authors, Elisa Camahort-Page and Carolyn Giron, came from the 2016 election and us feeling like we wanted to be able to hand our friends something who were feeling scared at the end of that time, and to give people an actionable resource that would say, no matter where you are, what your circumstances, what you seemed, what kind of power you have in the systems that we live in, you can find yourself in this book with an actionable local thing you can do today. That is kind of inspiration I have. And then other times it'll just say, oh, what would it have been like if I, as a Black child, had a love letter written to me from elders to say, you are important, you are special, you come from a long lineage of people who are beautiful and valuable and have many gifts that not only have shaped the American experience, but the world. And let's introduce you to some of those luminaries, or if you've already met them, let's introduce you to the things that made them great when they were young, those curiosities they've had and how they turned those things into the contributions they've made into the world. And so a lot of time that's the kind of thing. And then lastly, the book, Big Ideas for Young Thinkers, which is one of my most recent books for young readers, came from me just thinking about how I loved philosophy as a child. And I didn't really get to study philosophy deeply until I reached college. And it's not the way it is in a lot of other countries. In France, they teach philosophy to young people very, very early on. And I learned it in high school, but I didn't really get to deepen that.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I wanted an accessible book for young people to really get to know philosophy, but not just philosophy that would be the usual philosophers that represent a singular European white experience, but philosophers from all over, and also people who may not have been considered les philosophes, you know, but people who have important things to say from a variety of education, class backgrounds, racial experiences, nationalities over time, and to have them in conversation together. And the real nugget in my mind was, what would it be like to have Plato and Roxane Gay in the same book having a debate about a question in the world, right? And so that's the kind of thing I like. And I also wanted a book that would encourage children to debate and to think critically, because there are countries that do that. The French do that really well. That is not something that is as encouraged in the US unless it's a specialized school or an independent school that focuses on that, or unless it's an extracurricular activity like Model UN, which I loved so much. So it was part of me being a debate nerd, but also thinking this is something that 6-year-olds should learn how to do, how to hold different ideas from other people. And then when you talk with them about your different ideas, and when there is that inevitable friction, to lean into it and know that you're addressing the difference of ideas and not the person in a wounding way. And so the book also guides readers into thinking about how can you debate, how can you talk to adults respectfully about the ways in which you disagree with them, but also stand your ground in your case, and how can you also evolve your ideas, and why it's okay and actually encouraged to change your mind about things when you get new information that changes how you think.
I love it. I love it. And you know what I love most is because I'm always talking about, because I host book clubs here in Chicago and do different things in the neighborhood, and I'm always pushing that we need to be able to provide a variety of type of text to our students, right, and then to our children. And it's beautiful. Representation matters. I also believe I'm also on the critical thinking side, because I teach science, like critical thinking, problem solving, like having those tools and that toolcase. You can never start too young, right? And so being able to empower our children with that. And so I know with us watching, we have families, we have children. We also have those who watch this program because they also aspire to be authors themselves. And so I would love to hear a little bit about the journey. So was it very difficult to get your first book published? Like what was that process like? And, you know, we can all have these visions and things we really want to push, but we feel like, man, the process to get published can be so difficult. How was that for you?
Yeah, so for me, you know, I was lucky to have sort of an established platform online. I had been blogging for many years. I had contributed to other people's anthologies and, you know, been published in these other places. And so I had some people approach me because I had some content out there. But for the years before that, I was out there blogging on multiple platforms, doing all sorts of things just for joy, just for engagement, just for community, just for processing. You know, I am old enough to share that I was on LiveJournal and creating my little blogspot blogs. And, you know, I had a MySpace site that I coded. You know, the kids are now like, oh, what are these dinosaur artifacts she's talking about? What are those things, right? But I, you know, would be on WordPress doing my little HTML on that and blogging. And so over time, I was just building community, getting my voice out there, networking with other people who wanted to do it, joining writing groups in my free time and sharing my writings with other people. You know, it's not something that I published, but I had been really into poetry in my youth, and college. I got into poetry even more, and, you know, just started kind of sharing with some friends who I felt like I could be vulnerable about around to share my poetry. And so for me, it was really an exercise of, I find joy in this. But then I was also writing professionally at work, ghost writing for people who I worked for, placing op-eds for them. And so having that experience in my job of a very different kind of writing helped me, because I was able to learn the business by watching people I was working with engage with their publishers, their editors, their community. And when it was my time, and when I was approached about the book, I had some insights, and I had people and mentors that I could go to and say, I have this opportunity. What do you think? What advice would you give me? And I would say that I'm lucky, and I would say that part of why I've doubled down on the publishing ramp and in my work outside of being an author, I'm an editor and was a publisher at Feminist Press. It came from really thinking about how I have had access to an industry that has long been gatekept, and I want to share that with others and know that through my experience, as a historically marginalized voice in this environment, I can bring a lot of different insights and connections for others, and also systemic understanding and action. So all of those things came to that. And I also, have made some mistakes along the way. I had, before that book came out, I had been talking with another publisher who was going to publish another project I was working on. And when that came to be, we were talking about it, but I wasn't exactly feeling like that was the first thing for me to come forth with. And I struggled. And it came from a proposal that I'd sent out based on an op-ed that publisher had been attracted to. But I met with a literary agent who gave me some insight and guidance about thinking about what it is I wanted to do. And that information really helped me think about, okay, what direction do I want to start with first? It doesn't mean that her making this one comment really stuck with me, which was, I kept wanting to make my one book be the book that did and said everything I felt like I had to say. And what if I do this book and I can't do that book? And she really helped take me from scarcity to abundance to say, oh, I see for you, maybe 6-8 books or more in a lifetime. And with that, it really opened my brain and my heart to thinking about and approaching this work differently.
You're like, I don't have to put it all in this one book. You can really
because I see it all the time, when I'm reviewing people's manuscripts. A lot of times people think, oh, this is my chance. I've got to go for it. I've got to, put everything in this book. Whereas some of the best books that I've read, especially if there's something that's memoir, personal stories, are the books that really zero in on a moment, on a phase, on a time, on a glimpse. That's a very meaty one, right? But I think we have this idea that, oh, if I've got this moment and I'm going to get published, I need to say 85 things, make this book be 80 million ways and do all the things. And that's a lot of pressure to put on one book. Yeah. So I really thank her for that, because it really changed my trajectory, and it allowed me to say, I can see this moment that the book is going to focus on and evolve into. And the next book could be about this other thing that's also coming forth. And it allowed for more oxygen and creative energy to flow.
I love it. And that's perfect into my next comment. So what is that research, and what is that creative process for you? So now you're like, okay, I can get my message out in multiple ways at multiple times. So what is kind of the thinking behind Jamia when she's trying to put together, one of your books?
I would love to say that I am super organized and that my thinking is super organized, but I am going to keep it all the way, with you right now and tell you about me. So, I'm one of those people who my mind is always going a mile a minute. I am, always a million things swirling around. I think fast, I talk fast. That's just who I am. And I have learned to accept that and not let it be a block. Some days it still can be to more draw into it and see it as a gift. That can sometimes be difficult for those who live with me and that kind of thing. But, to say, oh, wow, you and from my, faith perspective, spirit has given you the gift of creativity and ideas and energy, and all of it doesn't have to be done today. Yeah. All of it doesn't have to be turning into a book. Wait, let some of it play out. But what are the things you can't stop thinking about? What is the priority today and in this moment? And so what I've done is, over the years, found the ways where I feel most focused and the tools I need to help organize those thoughts and help focus the many different tiny micro actions and details that you need to follow to get a book to publication. That is what I've done. And I am a very iterative writer. So I'm someone I've learned to kind of speak about, not who I hope to be based on what I watch on TV or how I would like people to see me, but to say, this is actually who I am and how I work, to let my editors know, okay, I'm going to need you to tell me what days chapters 1 through 3 are due, chapters 4 through 6 are due, chapters 8 through 11 or do because I know myself and I'm so perfectionistic. I'm going to go back and forth and want to change a lot of things. I'm going to need you to help create some guardrails, not if, but for when that happens, and to set boundaries to allow me to let go of things when I want to come back to them when they need to be left alone. And so I've really learned, I think from being an editor myself too, to know that about myself, which is why I love being an editor, because I have empathy for writers, because I see sometimes when writers are trying to show me that they have it all together, or that, they're so organized, or this or that, and they're, ripping themselves apart because they're late or something. And I'll say, I understand this. I know you. I know us. And, and there are other people who for that isn't a problem. But I think for me, just kind of understanding my process, not the process that writing books have told me that I have to embrace, that has helped me. And I've gained a lot of insights reading a lot of different books about different folks and their creative process to help me say, what are the things I can borrow and remix for how I work? And so I use those people as life apprentices, which I've written about in my Step Into Your Power book, that how do people alive and transitioned into the next realm help you see who you can be and how you can interact in the world? What are the tips you can learn from them? One I learned is I heard that Dr. Maya Angelou would get a hotel room sometimes and just block out time and get a hotel room and just go in there with the bare essentials and write when she had a major deadline. And I was really struggling to get a couple of projects out a few years ago. I had dealt with the loss of my mom. I had some big things I was managing. I had a job. And I thought, I'm going to go to this amazing Black-owned bed and breakfast that I love in DC. It's called Aquaba. They have a Zora Neale Hurston suite. Oh, wow. I am going to, hold back and not get my coffee shop coffees for a couple of weeks, everything, figure out how to prioritize and get my money right so I can go down to DC by myself, because, I can't, if I take my partner or someone else, I'm going to want to play.
Exactly.
But I'm going to go, not really tell my friends I'm in town and that'll be my cherry on top until the book is filed, get that hotel room, get food delivered to me, and just write and know that Zora's spirit is looking at me while I'm doing this. Right. And so for me, that was someone else's hack that I was able to kind of learn from and to do, and to say, yeah, I know myself. I kind of need no distractions. Yeah. And I'm going to channel Dr. Angelou and, do something that's also a treat for myself. And, how am I going to justify the expense of going to a place like this if I don't come out of it with that manuscript done, which will turn into my book, that will later enabled me to feel accomplished that I've gotten it done. So those are the kinds of things to really think about, how to treat yourself, that this should be about pleasure and joy too. In our culture, we talk so much about work in a way that I find painful, that I'm thinking, how can we be abundant? I keep a big bar of dark chocolate available at the ready that says, okay, if you set up, I do the Pomodoro technique where you can do.
Yeah, the section. Yeah, I did that with a friend. I loved it because I'm trying to myself. So all of this, I'm just telling you, you're giving me so much life right now.
I love it.
But I have a children's book that I really, really want to put out, actually with me and my son. And my friend told me about this technique. So she did a session and I did it with her. And it was so like literally just key in for this amount of time and then check in. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me so happy. And good luck on your book. And it makes me so happy you're doing that, because my husband has mastered it even more than I do, because like I said, my brain, he is better at staying on his Pomodoros, but just even I do it. And when I was at Feminist Press, my staff started doing it. I had some people ask me about it, and it's just amazing, because I sit here and I'll say, and now I'm worried about saying it, because if I do, she might turn on, but Alexa, set me 30 minutes and then okay, for 30 minutes, I'm going to write this thing. And then I get a little piece of dark chocolate, and then I'm going to come back and say, Alexa, give me another 30 minutes. And that, suddenly that becomes a chapter. I also break it down. So if I have a word count for some things, because sometimes I do freelance pieces and write and do interviews and essays, etc., I will sometimes say, okay, the editor's saying I have to have by this date 2,500 words. So what I'll do is break it down and say, I need to have this transcribed by X date. And I'm going to break it down and I estimate it'll be X amount of time for the transcriptions. And then I need to have it written by X date. And so I'm going to break it down to 500 words per day until that the day before it, so that I can write it and then review it. Right. And so that for me, it's something about the 500 psychologically for me works better. Whereas I have friends and know other writers who are saying, I just need to bang it all out at once. And I think sometimes I do that too, but I've seen, okay, I monitor my patterns. Sometimes you bang it out, you get inspired, but you mostly in the most healthy place for you, where you're not hurried, where you haven't been able to take care of yourself. When you've done it in the way that feels healthiest for you, you've really said, break this down. So I think just knowing yourself, which seems so simple, is important, because a lot of times people think, oh, it's almost like New Year's resolution time. Everyone thinks, they get a gym membership, right? And I feel like it's similar to that I didn't get a gym membership. I mean, and this is COVID, but I know me. I'm kind of like, oh, I take a couple ballet classes a week. I'm kind of like, at first I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to be lifting weights. I'm going to do this stuff. Like that's not who I am. So now I thought, okay, what are the healthy things I can do that are me? Why do I have to feel like I need to do, what's the one that's the paleo thing? CrossFit. When I'm not a CrossFit type of person on the page, right? And so,
and if I set that as the bar, I feel like I failed because I didn't do it this way, right? Yeah,
exactly. So I think I'm more of a yoga Pilates type ballet type person on the page, and I can't come with a CrossFit plan to get there. And so I think, but then there's some of the CrossFit people, and I've seen that too, editorially, some writers really want someone who's going to be, more of a boot camp editor, right? And so it's that you just knowing yourself and finding the team to work with who also understands you, works well with you and your needs, and communicating your needs, and also being okay with communicating your strengths and your weaknesses. So I will often do that too when I'm trying to get something copy edited or that kind of thing, to tell people, oh, this is a thing I need support on. This is a thing I need people to look out for.
I love it. So if you are joining us, because I'm so excited for this conversation, we are talking to Ms. Jamia Wilson. And what we're about to move into, which I know we all are looking forward to, is she's going to do a live reading. And she's going to read one of her newest publications and just give us a little background. We've heard her background as far as how she started writing and her process. We'll actually get to see it live. And so, Jamia, I'm about to pull out so we can go to the live reading, and the show is all yours.
Thank you so much. So thank you for having me. I wanted to show you, I have, several books for young readers, and I have and a book for adults called Roadmap for Revolutionaries. And that was co-authored by Elisa Camahort-Page and Carolyn Giron. And I was trying to decide what to read you today, either Young, Gifted, and Black, illustrated by Andrea Pippins, Big Ideas for Young Thinkers, illustrated by Andrea Pippins, and also Step Into Your Power, illustrated by Andrea Pippins. And I also have another children's book called The ABCs of AOC, which feels very fitting today since she's been really powerful on the Hill. But I was thinking about showing you this book, Young, Gifted, and Black, the baby book, because it is brand spanking new. It just came out this week in this year, 2021, and it's been something to look forward to in 2021 for me. And this is a little baby book, a board book, and I call it a little baby book too because the trim size is a tiny trim size. But this book is about introducing little ones of all backgrounds to Black excellence. And this book is designed for the next generation, and it allows young dreamers, no matter where they're from, who they are, what their families look like, to see themselves next to their favorite heroes, because there's a surprise in the back of the book, and you'll get to see why you can see yourselves next to the heroes. So the way we did this book was based on some of the most popular personalities in the Young, Gifted, and Black book, which has biographies and experiences of luminaries from around the world and shows the things that helped them make a deep impact on the world based on their interest as young people. But this book doesn't have the space to do the biographies, and it's more geared toward younger readers. So what it has is affirmations. And so in this book, you can see here that it says, there are so many things I am and can be. I am smart, like Katherine Johnson. And so the goal is that young readers and the adults who are reading them, because I read children's books all the time myself, so I just want to say, let's not lie here. Adults are also loving these books. That they can have affirmations to say. And when you say these positive affirmations, you can see them in yourself. I use my imagination like Zadie Smith. I am artistic like Jean-Michel Basquiat. Here is one of the favorites of all time, of all the readers in the world I've met. I'm quick like Muhammad Ali. People love Muhammad Ali. I love to move my body like Misty Copeland. She's another favorite. This one's important because we're coming up on Martin Luther King Day. I stand up for myself and others like Martin Luther King Jr. I am talented like Nina Simone, who inspired the name of our book, Young, Gifted, and Black. I reach for the stars like Mae Jemison. I'm a leader like the Obamas. I am powerful like the Williams sisters. I can change the world like Rosa Parks. I bring people together like Nelson Mandela. I care for people and the planet like Wangari Maathai. And then I love this illustration. I want to make sure you can see it. I fly high like Simone Biles, and I use my voice like W.B. Du Bois. I spread joy like Stevie Wonder, and I'm a champion like Pele. And then, dun-da-da, the final part, there's a world waiting for me, and readers can see themselves, so I'll do it right here, in the mirror in the book. So you can see yourselves and your dreams in this book. There's so many things I am and can be. And in Young, Gifted, and Black, with a mirror, readers can see themselves next to their heroes and see that they can do and be all those things. And anytime you're feeling like you need to be inspired to see those qualities and values in yourself, or to share that experience with others, you can go and turn to the book and see one of those things and remind yourself that you have that within you too. So I did that about a week ago. I was feeling really sad. I lost my grandma at the beginning of the year, and I just turned to a page because she loved my books. And I read, I am powerful like the Williams sisters. I can change the world like Rosa Parks, and it made me feel better. So there's so many things we can be, and that's one of the things and the key messages I want readers to know when they meet the heroes in the books that we introduce to them. And I'm really excited to see what you all think of this book. I have another one coming out. It'll be coming out later this year. And it is called This Book is Feminist. And it is for teen readers. And it is a book about feminists in training, intersectional feminism. And it has a lot of stories from my own life about how my own thinking about equality has evolved as it relates to race, class, gender, nationality, and a variety of experiences that I've had, disability, all of those things. So I'm excited to introduce that book to you too when it comes out later in the year. It's now available for pre-order if you or anyone that you know is interested. Thank you so much.
I absolutely love it. Let's give her a round of applause. I love affirmations. I mean, it is so important that we speak life to ourselves and to our children and to each other. And I'm all about affirmations. I have it on my phone, around my house. I just really believe that it's so important. So I believe that this book is really needed for everyone's home library because we need to start, especially when they're babies.
Yes, thank you so much. And I love that you do that too, because I have that in my calendar.
Yes.
I have my affirmation that I've had the same one now for about 10 years. That's my core affirmation, and it still holds. And I think it's just so important. I am my truest calling and living abundantly.
I love it. I love it. I love that. So yes, you all. I truly loved it. It was each connected to amazing people that not only are you speaking affirmation to yourself, but you're learning about our rich history, right? And people who have done amazing things. And then it ends with our children realizing that they can be the continuation of those things. And so I love it. I love it. I love it. So when we think about and we're coming towards the end. So those who are listening, again, if you have questions to pose, let me know. We have a few more to ask Ms. Wilson while she's here, but I have to know, what are like your top 3 books?
That changes all the time. I love it. I am really lucky to be in a business where I'm getting manuscripts submitted to me every day. So, in the moment I'm reading things that, might become a book 3 years from now, 2 years from now, that, oh, this is going to be so good. But, I have a special little shelf that I'm looking at right here that has a lot of my favorites. And I like to collect first edition rare books of books that I'm really passionate about, made by women specifically. And one of the books that is most special to me is The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Yeah. That is a very special book to me. It was given to me when I was 8 years old and changed the way that I thought about the world and humanity and righteousness and how we treat each other as humans, but also helped me see that I could be a writer one day, because she was a writer and she had confidence in herself. Alice Walker, The Color Purple would be another, but I also think In Search of Our Mother's Gardens is tied with that. I love that book also very intensely. And Zora Neale Hurston's I Love Myself When I'm Laughing, but then again, when I'm mean and impressive. It's a very long title. That is my other favorite book. And that book was published by the Feminist Press, where I just transitioned out at the end of last year. But I was really lucky to be able to work on a reissue anniversary edition of that and to be one of the funders to help bring that book back out into the world with a new editorial note from Alice Walker. So that was my very nerdy dream come true, to be able to work on one of my favorite books that had been given to me by my late mother when I was a teenager. And that book just is one of the most important books I've ever read. It's just helped shape my thinking in so many ways. And so much of what Zora Neale Hurston was talking about many, many years ago still remains so relevant, including around diversity in publishing. So it's those are books that I love, but I have so many I'm in love with. I have many amours.
Man. And thank you, because it just adds to me. I love reading and I love just asking that question so I can, if I don't need more books, but I have a ton in my house, I can get more to add to my library. What would be, this is my second to last question, what advice do you have for aspiring artists? And I know you said quite a few things. What stuck to me is just like really knowing yourself, because knowing yourself is actually going to make the process very smooth, right? Because you're able to know what best suits you to produce your best work. But what would you say would be advice if someone's listening right now, like, man, I see all this work that he's doing and publishing and writing, and I mean, what would be one thing you would want them to walk away from this conversation with?
I am lucky to have a lot of artists in my life. My partner, he's a jazz musician, so music is being created in my home and being played in my home every day. Even today, we were making up a song this morning, and I thought, I just feel so lucky to be around art all the time. And I think what I see is I just want people to know and trust in the value of their art, even if they're not seeing the immediate returns in the traditional ways of recognition. Don't be discouraged. Keep going and know that rejection is just a form of, as one of my cousins says, redirection sometimes.
Yeah.
Or it might just mean that XY person doesn't get your art, but it doesn't mean it makes it any less good, and that you just still need to keep going for until you get to where you need to go. I think I get so discouraged when I see people say they want to throw in the towel and give up because they've tried to get published or they've tried to get a record deal or this person or that person rejected them. So many of the people who I love to read had been rejected many, many, many times and been told that they could not do it. And they did. When I think of the Anne Frank book, I heard that book had been found in a slush pile. And someone found it, and a woman editor had said, "Oh, what's this?" And that there had been people before who had said, "Oh, we don't know if this should be published." So just remember that there's a lot that comes into the mix of, what success means. And I think for me, taking the burden of needing my art to support my entire livelihood off of it was really important to say, I create and produce this art because it's what I need to do, like drinking water and breathing oxygen. And focusing in on that and caring less about what other people were going to think about it. And then getting it out. And that being a really important part of my process to see the energy shift around that.
I love it. I love it. And so what do you desire next in your career? Because in whatever way that comes to you, it doesn't have to be connected to writing, but what do you desire, next moving forward?
I'm really excited that I just started at Random House. And
I know.
I love it. Thank you so much. I feel like it's a dream come true. My team is really amazing. And I think, I'm just excited to see what unfolds in this next chapter, to meet the authors that I will have the honor of championing and supporting, and to also see how I grow as an editor, how I grow in my views on the world because of the amazing writing and ideas that I'm being exposed to from this brilliant artist. So I'm just really excited to see what unfolds and to lean into that. But I'm also excited I've just decided to think about, my work in terms of my own writing in a more global way. So what was really delightful to me in the past few years is that I was able to see several of our books for young readers translated into other languages. And every time we get a translation, I get really excited. I love that we have 2 different Spanish editions for several of my books, and that we have an Italian version of one of my books and a French version of 2 of them. And I think there's going to be a Brazilian Portuguese version of Young, Gifted, and Black. And just knowing that readers from around the world are engaging with these materials and having conversations that are the conversations and exploring the things that I'm exploring in life and my community's exploring. There's something about that I find really healing. And so for me, I'm just excited to do whatever I can to reach more diverse global readers. And one of the motivations I have is I had been studying French for a really long time growing up and kind of fell off of it, became a little less confident. I would go places and kind of pretend that I didn't know as much French as I did because I didn't want to be put on the spot. I felt very self-conscious when I couldn't get the grammar exactly right or that kind of thing. And when I went to visit my French publisher, I was too shy to do one of the interviews we did in a video interview similar to this in French. And so one of my goals in this pandemic has been to use some of the time I have at home to take French lessons again. And I have a French tutor. So that's another just immediate goal to get to that point where I can speak to my readers in the languages that I've been studying. And I'd studied French and Italian. And so I want to get back into those languages and to feel more confident to be able to talk to more readers about the ideas that we all care about.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is so awesome. So you all, as we are closing, I want us to talk, how can people stay up to date with what's happening with you? At the bottom, I have your website. So go visit. It's amazing. You get to see all of the things that Jamia has done. And it's just the beginning. Just the beginning. And so is there anything you would like to add, how people can stay up to date on what's happening next with you?
Thank you so much. Please stay connected. Love to hear. I love when you tag Andrea and myself on the books to let us know how your kiddos are engaging with them. I cannot tell you how much that makes my heart sing when I look at what's going on in the headlines in the world and I'm feeling down about the many things that we have to worry about with coronavirus and all sorts of things happening in politics. When I see kids engaging with these books, it brings me to tears. It makes my heart melt. And I want to say, if you ever want to tag me on Twitter or Instagram with those, I would love to reshare them. It makes my day and my week. And also I have a mailing list on my website, jamiawilson.com. And whenever I have updates, things like that, I reach out. And I don't reach out a lot, so don't think I'll spam your inbox. But, if you ever want updates about, I'll probably reach out when my new book's available and that kind of thing. And I, love to just stay connected on social, and I'm very active on Instagram. So if you want to follow me at Jamia A. Wilson, I would love to connect with you there.
Awesome. Well, you all, this has been The Front Row with Jamia Wilson. I have truly enjoyed this time. I just wish you nothing but success. And just thank you for this opportunity just to learn more about you, hear about your inspirations, and also to have a live reading so that our families, when they're at home, they can really see the inspirations behind the books they're purchasing. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing the most important work, teaching the next generation. I love it, and I loved science class. So yeah, my partner, he was a biochemistry and jazz major. We love scientists in this home. So thank you for all you do and for the wonderful work you do. And I'm just wishing you a happy Martin Luther King Day weekend too.
You as well. You all take care. Bye.
Take care.